We've got some Falcons roster moves to break down on today's show as Atlanta has tweaked their initial 53-man roster, adding some guys on the offensive line, making some corresponding moves. Plus, we have a practice squad tracker to run through. But before we get to the practice squad tracker, let's start things off by talking about the newest member of the Atlanta Falcons roster, and that is offensive tackle Isaiah Prince. So, the Falcons added Prince after he was released by the Denver Broncos, and of course, they had to make a corresponding roster move. Now, before we get into all that, it is Panthers Hate Week because we are 11 days away from Week 1 against Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, and I want to set the tone early. So start spamming F Carolina down in the comment section. It's Panthers Hate Week, ladies and gentlemen. Set the tone early. Now, we knew that the Falcons wanted an offensive lineman. If you are subscribed to the channel, you would have known that for the last week or so, I have vocalized my belief that the Falcons are going to add some interior or exterior offensive line depth because, frankly, after their starting five, there was not a lot of encouraging play to be had in a lot of those preseason games. And sure enough, Atlanta, I know they watch every single episode, took my advice, and they added Isaiah Prince. So let's look at Isaiah Prince's preseason PFF grades. Overall grade 70.2. You are finding one man's trash and you are thinking it's your treasure. So by no means am I going to stand here and I'd advertise Isaiah Prince as the next swing tackle of the gods for the NFL. But this is that, just a swing tackle. And it's better than what Atlanta initially had in Tyler Vrabel. And after moving on from Jalen Mayfield and Miles, they did not really have a go-to guy, right? If someone went down on the offensive line, who would be that next man up? There was no real clear answer for that question. I'm not even sure if Isaiah Prince is that guy. He's a UDFA out of Ohio State who had some good games in the preseason with Denver, but clearly not good enough for the Broncos to hold on to. And I'll tell you this much, it's not the Broncos' offensive line had 10 guaranteed locks to make the roster. So the Falcons are looking at this thinking, hey, with our offensive line coach and our guys, we can make Isaiah Prince into that swing tackle that can fill in if something were to happen to Matthews or McGarry. But with that, there is a corresponding move to be had, and that is Josh Miles will be waived. Again, this is unfortunately just the nature of the beast when it comes to the initial 53-man roster because it's only that initial. There are always moves made in the next 24 to 48 hours. Don't think this is the end of the line. The Falcons are definitely going to have all their pro scouts who have been looking across the other 31 NFL rosters, seeing if there are any good pieces out on the street. But what is your one-word reaction to the Isaiah Prince signing? Sound off for me down in the comment section below. Let me know what it is. If I had to give a one-word reaction, I'd go with unsurprising, because anyone that has been watching this channel and is subscribed to the channel knows that we have been preaching for more offensive line depth. And when the initial roster came out, my reaction was, do not think this is a final piece. There are going to be moves made. The Falcons had a bad offensive line in the preseason when the backups were in. And frankly, even the starters were not all that impressive in their one series against the Bengals. So Atlanta addresses this by adding a player they deem to be better than Josh Miles. Now, let's get into a practice squad tracker. I do want to advertise that this is just a initial practice squad. It's a very fluid situation, meaning there are going to be guys who are maybe added to the roster if players are placed on IR, which opens up practice squad spots. There will be guys who kicked off the practice squad and players added. This is never a set-in-stone piece. But without further ado, let's jump right into it, starting with safety Micah Abernathy. This was a no-brainer in my eyes. When he did not make the initial 53-man roster, I knew that Atlanta would want to bring him back, and they do so on the practice squad. Cornerback Natrone Brooks, Parker Hesse, Timmy Horne, and Godwin Igwebuike also making the practice squad. I'm happy to see all 5 of these players back on it. Those were 5 guys that I thought stood out to me in moments during the preseason and definitely warranted further looks and evaluations, which you can do on the practice squad. And if an injury pops up, I wouldn't say I'm going to sleep soundly knowing these guys are the next man up, but it is not a worst-case scenario for sure. Now, Parker Hesse, definitely a great blocking tight end, and this is a tight end room that has some players in it with injury histories. So do not be surprised if Parker Hesse gets his number called at some point in the season. And especially if Arthur Smith wants to establish a ground game, Hesse could be a good option as a tight end. And you can always elevate guys from the practice squad up to the active roster. Timmy Horne, this one was a bit of a surprise in my eyes. He had some spot starts last season. He's got some NFL regular season experience. But ultimately, Terry Fontenot wanted to revamp this defensive line. And I kind of look at it through this lens of, in college football, when a team brings back a bunch of starters and we're all like, oh, they're going to be so good next year. They're returning all these guys. Yeah, but what if those players suck, right? AKA Texas A&M. Like, sure, you're bringing back all of your defensive starters, but your defense was awful last year. Are those the guys you really want to bring back? I think Timmy Horne kind of falls into that bucket of Terry Fontenot saw that movie last year. He doesn't want to see it again, so he wants to get some new blood on the defensive line. Now, when it comes to the Falcons news and rumors beat, you know that we are the best in the biz. Help us reach our next milestone, 14,000 subscribers. We have crossed over 13.4K, so we have a little over 500 to go. Hit that sub button down below and lock yourself in for the best free Falcons YouTube content. Moving on to the rest of the practice squad, Xavier Malone, Matthew Sexton, Tucker Fisk, Justin Shaffer, and Tyler Vrabel, all players who were with Atlanta during the preseason and training camp. Xavier Malone definitely jumps out to me. 4 grabs, 83 yards. He had some nice splashes and whatnot in the preseason. Solid special teamer to go along with it as well. I'm a little surprised, no Keelan Harris. I thought he impressed enough in the preseason to warrant a spot on a 16-man practice squad, but ultimately Atlanta decides to go with 2 different receivers. Who knows? There could be some more moves made, and Harris will definitely be someone that Atlanta keeps the phone number of, and I could see him having a midseason return if he stays in shape. Now, before we get to the rest of the practice squad, we have the official 2023 Falcons sideline hats. So if you want to up your Falcons wardrobe, do it with the brand new sideline official hats, which we have at chatsports.com/FalconsSL hats. That link is in the comments and the description of today's video. So do yourself a favor, treat yourself. We had a good office debate today. Better show, Office or Parks and Rec. I'll die on the hill The Office walked, and Parks and Rec could never replace it. But if you want to treat yourself, make sure you go to chatsports.com/FalconsSL hats. 4 more guys to look at here on the practice squad, as this is always a bit of a fluid room. Barry Wesley, Andre Smith, Kemoko Turay, and LaCale London. I liked what I saw out of London on the defensive line during the preseason. And again, this is not a preseason. This is not a defensive line that's got 6 Pro Bowlers on it or anything close to that. So I could definitely see London popping up if Gaziano, for example, isn't looking the part in the first couple of weeks of the regular season. Now, Atlanta has 2 more practice squad spots, so they are probably just kind of taking their time looking over all the guys who were waived yesterday because, well, there were nearly 1,000 players in the NFL cut. It takes a little bit of time to kind of weed through all that paperwork and come up with the 16 best names. So Atlanta not rushing to just add 16 guys to the practice squad just to turn around a couple hours later and go, oh, that guy was cut? This guy's available? Okay, let's release these 2 guys now. That's kind of a mean phone call to give just a few hours after adding them to your practice squad. So when more players are added, we'll keep you in the loop here on the channel. But name someone you want on the Falcons practice squad. We're getting into the X's and O's. We're getting into the weeds, the nitty-gritty of the Atlanta Falcons roster. But then again, if you are watching all the way into the end of the video, I got to believe you are a diehard Falcons fan, so you live for practice squad updates and whatnot. That will do it for us on today's show. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, if you got all the way to the end of the video. I think we're doing something right here. So like the video, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you guys later.